Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Tier List Tuesday. So, for this tier list, we're going to be doing the Dark Souls 1 bosses. And Dark Souls 1 is one of my favorite games. I prefer other games in the series, I would say, but I think that the first half of Dark Souls 1 is the best designed world in terms of the interconnectivity of any game that I've ever played. And on a different note, I'm going to be getting a haircut pretty soon. So in the next video, I'm going to be looking a lot different. But for now, I've still got this homeless sort of woodsman look going on. But that will change soon. So let's get into it, right? So they're not really in order. They like kind of are, I guess, but not really, right? But let's just start at the beginning, right? So we've got the Asylum Demon, the sort of thick tutorial boss that you fight at the end of the Undead Asylum. And, I think it's a good boss, right? Because it is a lot of players' first experience with the Dark Souls boss. And they are very forgiving. However, if you have never played one of these games before, you might die a bunch because you don't really understand the rolling and the dodging and all that. And I also like that when you first go up into there, you don't have a weapon, so it's like impossible to kill him, right? I mean, you can, but it's like really, really hard. And I like that because it teaches you right away to like look around the level and to, have a little bit of problem solving going on because you can just run through the gate, right? And when you run around and you get your starter weapon and then you do the plunging attack, it shows you how much different of a fight it is, right? It becomes pretty trivial at that point. I think for the Asylum Demon, for being just a really solid tutorial boss, I'm going to give it a B tier. It's nothing to really write home about, but it is very memorable. And I actually played Dark Souls 2 first in my Souls journey, but I still think the Asylum Demon is great, right? So the Bell Gargoyle, or should I say Bell Gargoyles, is what a lot of people consider to be the first big roadblock for a new Souls player. So, you get to Andre, and you get that bonfire, and then you ascend the chapel to the roof, where you are greeted with this stinky gargoyle, right? And one's bad enough, right? Because he does the downward chop, and you're on the triangular roof, right? The slanted roof. So it can be really hard to get hits in, especially if you use the Zweihander like me. And then when you get the first one to half health, a second one comes in, and it's the big first gank, right? So, I don't really like it that much. I think it's kind of a cheap boss, I will say. And I think that, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty iconic, and they are certainly a challenge. But besides the fact that you can summon Solaire, I don't really like this boss very much, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to put it in C tier. It's not horrible, but at the same time, it's not amazing or really that good either. Okay, so here's probably my most controversial opinion on the list. I really like the Capra Demon. I think that it is a brutal challenge for first-time players, right? And I think that the arena being so small and the fact that there's two dogs in there with him is just like such an encapsulation of Dark Souls, right? About how brutal the game is. But you keep the shield up and you run up the stairs and take care of the dogs and stuff. I really like the Capra Demon. I still die to him every time I play, right? I don't get him on the first try almost ever. I don't think I ever have in any of my playthroughs. But I love his design, right? I love just with like the goat head and the two giant cleavers. He looks sick, right? And a lot of that was lost on me when there was just a bunch of them spammed in the Lost Izalith area. But all the same, I Really enjoy the Capra Demon. I think it is a, brutally iconic fight, right? And for that, I'm going to give him an A tier. I know that's probably very controversial, but I'm a big fan, right? So, Ceaseless Discharge has a really funny name, right? I think the Democracy, who makes rankings of Dark Souls, calls him Unending Relief of Load, which I find to be hilarious. And this boss is just terrible, right? It's the first boss in Lost Izalith, and he just drops the hammer on you, and you have to hit the hammer, and that's like the whole boss. It's pretty terrible. It really is pretty terrible. And honestly, for that, I don't really have much to say. I know you can run to the back of the arena and get the armor set. It's like a gold robe or something, right? But all in all, just a pretty shit boss. Gonna give it a D tier for sure. Look at that. We have an even spread so far. So, Centipede Demon, in my opinion, is the most forgettable boss in Dark Souls 1. I feel like I always forget that this is like even a thing. And they are, pretty terrible, right? Well, they're not terrible, but they're so forgettable and just there's nothing really good about them. You have to fight them on that like little platform because you don't have that ring. You have to get the ring from killing it, and then you can run across the lava, right? And all in all, just a very sort of forgettable boss that doesn't really do anything for me. And for that, I think C tier behind the gargoyles is a good spot. So Quelaag is a boss that I actually really enjoy. You slog your way through Blighttown, the trials and tribulations of that, and you finally reach the bottom, and Quelaag is awaiting you. And for such a beautiful top half, you have such a disgusting lower half. And, you can summon my favorite summon in the game to help you if you want, Maneater Mildred. And it's just a good boss, right? I really like the fight a lot. It has a nice spacious arena. And what I will say is that there is one attack that really pisses me off. And that's when it one-shots you, right? And there's a huge wind-up, so I'm a fool for falling for it. But she like leans her head down and then she explodes in that red energy ball. That shit always one-shots you. It's so annoying, right? I really like Quelaag though. I think that it's a really solid boss. It's a fun fight too. I just feel like it's a fun fight. For that, I'm going to put Quelaag in A tier above the Capra Demon. So now we've got Priscilla, and I think I've played Dark Souls 1 probably 4 or 5 times, but I've only ever actually done the Ariamis once because it's just the worst area in the game, right? Like the actual area itself is just such a horrible experience to get through. I really hate it a lot. And I think that the boss, however, is actually pretty good, right? Obviously, waifu material, but that's not really what I'm going to talk about today. I like the invisible sort of mechanic. I think that's a really cool sort of wrinkle, especially for so early in the series, right? I feel like that would be something that would be in like Dark Souls 3, not the first game. But I really enjoy it, and it's a good fight. And I think, the one time that I did do it, it kind of was like a nice reward, kind of a bit of a relief from such a horrible area, right? I'm going to put Priscilla probably in between these two in A tier. That's a good spot. Now, Gwendolyn is an optional boss. You have to, go into the basement of Anor Londo. And it's a terrible boss fight, right? Because you're just running in that hallway and you have to like duck and dive. And it's just such a like one-note fight that I'm really not a fan of it. I feel like their design is really cool, right? And I like how in Dark Souls 3, Aldrich kind of like has that too. Very cool design, but that's about all that it has going for it, in truth. So I'm going to give Gwendolyn probably like in between these two. That's probably good. It's better than Centipede Demon, surely. Demon Fire Sage is a reskin boss of the Asylum Demon. And it's just horrible, right? Like, at least it is on fire and has like one or two new attacks, but this is just the pinnacle of Dark Souls 1 being rushed alongside the other one. It just feels so cheap, right? And obviously it deserves an F tier for being just a total waste of time, in my opinion. And I think most others' opinions as well. Now, the Four Kings is a really interesting one because the fight itself is pretty mediocre, right? It's just like one big DPS check where you have to like smack them down really quickly. But it is the coolest fight in the game, right? I would say it's tied for the coolest fight in the game because you're in this like black abyss and there's no like depth perception. These things are like gigantic in front of you and their designs are so awesome. And just the spectacle of it is like incredible, right? So yeah, I think I'm going to just put the Four Kings probably top of A tier. I feel like they really deserve it. Tempted to put them in S, honestly. They are a really sick boss, right? But I think the fact that the fight itself isn't that good keeps it from being S, even though I do really appreciate what they were going for with the Four Kings. Now, the Gaping Dragon has an amazing design, right? It's horrifying. It's one of the craziest looking fictional creatures I can imagine. The fight itself is okay. It's not exactly exciting, and it's kind of just like an endurance test of like running out of the way and smacking it. But for the design, right, I feel like I have to give it like at least kind of high, so I'm gonna put it in B tier behind the Asylum Demon. Asylum Demon is just a bit too iconic, but the Gaping Dragon overall is a sort of early game kind of like eye opener, like oh my god, this game is crazy, right? So Sif, extremely emotional, right? It is Artorias' wolf that is guarding the seal so you can enter the abyss, right? And it's so sad, right? At the end when he starts whimpering, it's like, oh, that's just so sad, right? And the fight itself is pretty fun. It's pretty hard. I remember it being, I don't know if everybody shares this opinion, but I remember it being pretty tough. Every time I fought him, right? He kills me a lot. But I enjoy it, right? I think it's a good fight, and the lore is incredible, and the sort of emotional impact it has on you cannot be understated, right? I'm going to give Sif, you might be seeing S tier, I'm going to put him right behind Four Kings. Maybe above Four Kings. There's only a few bosses that I'm going to put in S tier, maybe even just one. We'll see. No, let's do that. That got to put some respect, right? Now, the final boss in the game is Gwyn, the Lord of Cinder, and the area before him, the Kiln, is maybe my favorite area in the game. Well, besides Ash Lake, of course. Ash Lake, I'm a huge simp for, but Gwyn is an interesting fight because it's a situation of if you can parry, he's pretty easy, but if you can't parry, he's actually quite hard. And I don't parry. I don't parry in these games. I never have. That's why Sekiro is so tough for me. I'm a dodge guy. I like the iframes. I dodge and smack. That's my plan, right? And that makes Gwyn pretty tough. And it's an amazing climactic battle, right? Of course it has to be A tier. I'm going to put it behind the Four Kings, though. I just think that Sif is much too emotional, and the Four Kings, the actual just spectacle of it itself, is really something that I can't understate how much I appreciate the art direction of that fight. It's amazing. So the Iron Golem is at the top of Sen's Fortress, which is another one of my favorite areas, just a brutal labyrinth, right? And the Iron Golem's an interesting one, right? Because you have a couple options to make it really easy. You can summon Tarkus, and Tarkus does all the work. Or, if you really work one of the legs, you can make him fall off, right? So there's a couple gimmicks that make the fight easier. Not that the fight itself is even that hard, right? His moves are very telegraphed. The most annoying thing he always does is he picks you up and throws you off, and I really hate that. It is very annoying, right? But other than that, it's kind of just like a mid to good fight. And I think for that, I'm going to give it just a low B tier. Because it's not like it's not enjoyable. It's just kind of like a, another stepping stone to Anor Londo, right? The final stepping stone. So we have the Moonlight Butterfly. And I always go and kill this thing right away. Every time I get to Andre, right? Just for the souls. And to get, Grass Crest Shield and the Elite Knight set. And I think this is maybe the worst boss in Dark Souls, the series. It is just, as a melee player, you just, okay, you're going to come down, dodge. Okay, you're going to come down, dodge. And they come down and eat the plants and you smack them. And then it is just such a, asinine experience, right? With that being said, though, I was exaggerating. It's not worse than Demon Fire Sage, but I do think it's an F-tier boss. It has a great design. I won't deny that, but the fight itself is just so bad. It's worse than Centipede Demon, right? Because, is it? This placement makes me want to knock Centipede Demon down, and I think I'm going to. I'm going to put Centipede Demon there, because it has a lot of the same things that Moonlight Butterfly has. So I think it would be unfair to have them 2 tiers apart like that. So Gravelord Nito, or Ravelord Nito, is one of the Lords of Cinder. And the fight, the area leading up to it is awesome, right? Oh, wait, no. I'm thinking of the area leading up to Manus. The area leading up to Nito actually sucks. And it's one of the worst areas. It is the worst area in the game, the Tomb of the Giants. I hate that area. I hate that area so much. I hate it more than Lost Izalith, right? But I do think that Nito is an okay boss fight. He summons a lot of skeletons, and then he kills all the skeletons. That's his thing. And it makes for kind of a mid to easy boss fight, I would say. It's really not that challenging. Especially if, by this point you have a pretty solid build, and I feel like you can just get through his health really fast. So I'm going to give Nito a low B. Maybe there is good. He has an amazing design, obviously, and has quite the imposing figure when you're actually in there with him, right? It's pretty scary. So we've got Ornstein and Smo. And full disclosure, I did a Dark Souls run recently, and I got stuck on ONS because I hadn't played in a while, and I died 10 times, and I was like, maybe I'll put this down for now. And I haven't returned. So I got filtered even though I've beat this game 5 times solo. ONS is an amazing boss, right? It's the best gank fight in the series. There's a boss in Dark Souls 3 that might actually challenge that. But the way that the arena is designed with the pillars allows you to kite them pretty easy, right? And I think it would be foolish for me to deny them an S tier, even though my inclination says top of A. I think you have to give them an S tier. It's just, you have to, right? I love the lore about Ornstein being the greatest knight, and then Smo was too brutal to be a knight, but then they came together to defend Guinevere. And yeah, they're going to be S tier. I can't deny it. I think there's 1 or 2 bosses that will be above them coming up here, but you just can't not put them there, right? So it's brutally difficult. Yeah, I would say it's the hardest boss in the game, for sure. Maybe Manus, but it's a toss-up. So Pinwheel is, the laughingstock of the community, right? It's a very easy boss. And it is also the progenitor of Giant Dad build, right? You get the Mask of the Father, and then you can do Giant Dad, which I think is just hilarious, right? But with that being said, not really, it's just so easy, right? It's done in 5 seconds. I don't think it's as offensive as these 4 bosses here, though. So I'm actually, and because he's so funny, I'm going to give him bottom of C. He is just a big goober, right? And you deal with him as such. So Seath is a boss that is sort of hyped up throughout the whole game, and he is at the end of the only second half of the game area that I actually like, being the Duke's Archives. but I must say that the boss itself is actually very disappointing. I feel like the whole gimmick with the crystal behind him, and it's just boring, right? I think it's one of the few bosses, like maybe like Gaping Dragon 2, where the boss is just like, you're just like, oh, okay, let's do it. It's not like an exciting thrill ride like a lot of the other bosses, right? So Seath, I am going to put in C tier above Pinwheel and above Gwendolyn too. Yeah, that's good. Now the Stray Demon is another Asylum Demon ripoff reskin, and they didn't even have the courtesy to light this one on fire. Abysmal boss, just truly abysmal. I think it's so cool that you return to the Asylum, but the fact that just this fucker is awaiting you is just such a letdown, right? Worst boss in the game. Well, second worst boss in the game. Well, we'll get there. So the Taurus Demon is the second boss you're going to fight, and you're on that narrow bridge. And I know a lot of people don't like the Taurus Demon, but I'm kind of a Taurus Demon sympathizer, I won't lie. The theme song is awesome, and I love the fact that you can climb the ladder and take out the archers and then do the plunging. And, he's got that berserk design, right? And overall, I think it's a really solid boss that gets a little bit too much hate. Probably because it's very easy. But with that being said, I'm going to give Taurus Demon a B tier, maybe like bottom of B tier. I think that's a good spot. Now, the Bed of Chaos is the ire of the Dark Souls community, right? They put platforming in a Souls game. What's up with that, right? And it has an extremely long run back, and when you die to it, it feels so cheap. When the branches sweep you into the hole, it's just so annoying, right? And it's such a letdown with the lore, right? Because this was supposed to be the Witch of Izalith, which is like, one of the Lords of... I think I said Lords of Cinder. That's Dark Souls 3. One of the, one of Gwyn's, like, main cronies, right? And the Bed of Chaos is truly a horrible boss. I can't deny that. I am like a pinch of a sympathizer. I think it is better than the reskins. That's all I can say for it, because at least it presents something that is unique, even though it's extremely frustrating and hard to deal with, right? So I'm going to put Bed of Chaos here in the F tier, right? Okay, so we've reached objectively the best boss in the game, right? You can say ONS if you want. You could even say Calamite if you want. It's Artorias, y'all. It's Artorias. Come on now, right? This like corrupted hero knight that descended into the abyss, and you find him when he is already maddened beyond belief, and the fight itself is the only thrill ride in this game, I would say. Like, comparing this boss to bosses in Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring and, even like Sekiro, this is the only boss in Dark Souls 1 that stands up to those and actually beats out a lot of them in the experience, right, of fighting them. It's brutally difficult, right? I think a lot of people say that he has like Dark Souls 3 speed in a Dark Souls 1 game, and I would agree with that because he is faster than you. And it's just like a brutal slugfest, right? I mean, when he does the forward flip attack, the front flip to slam attack, so badass, right? And it really is one of the best bosses in the series. Obvious S tier. It's the top of this list for sure. And now we've got 3 really great bosses left. The DLC is so good in this game, right? It really makes up, or it makes up a lot of what the second half of the game lacked in having just such a good DLC, right? So Calamite is the first real dragon fight, right? Because you had Dragon God and Demon Souls, but that was a shitter fight. Calamite is the first like real dragon that you fight, and boy is it a challenge, right? I feel like Calamite and Manus and ONS are the 3 hardest bosses. Artorias is hard, but I feel like you kind of like get into a rhythm when you're fighting him that makes it both a better fight, more exciting, and maybe even a little bit easier when you kind of get into that rhythm, right? But Calamite with his like black lightning laser, and he swoops down, and you have to dodge that. You have to like iframe that shit perfectly. He's tough. It's a challenge for sure. I'm gonna give Calamite top of A tier honors Tempted to put him in S tier. I feel like he probably deserves it. Yeah, honestly, I like him more than O and S, so I'm gonna put him here, honestly. So Manus is the final boss of the DLC, and I think most people would agree is the hardest boss in the game, right? The arena isn't that big, and he's so big and he's so relentless with his pressure that he almost gives you literally no time to like heal and dodge. It's just on. It's just go 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 go, right? And I mentioned earlier incorrectly when I was talking about Nito, but I love the area leading up to this guy going into the abyss with all the humanities around you. So eerie. It's like it chills my bones for sure. Fantastic boss, brutally difficult. One that I even struggle today to beat solo, right? I feel like I have to like get a friend sometimes. Maybe I just need to get good, right? But I love Manus. I think he deserves an S tier. I think all of the DLC bosses are going to be S tier because Sanctuary Guardian is actually a boss that a lot of people might sleep on, but I love this boss. I love its design. I think it is the coolest designed boss in the whole game. And I love its sort of like multifaceted moveset, right? Because it has the scorpion tail, and it has the lightning, and it has the claws and the wings. It's just such a like creative like manticore boss. And I love the area right before it with the little mushroom, right? Very good, and all around just easily one of my favorite bosses in the series. I'm gonna say it's my second favorite boss in this game. The greatness of Artorias cannot be denied, but I really, really enjoy Sanctuary Guardian in a sort of subjective sense, right? Because, I feel like most people would put Calamite, Manus, ONS, Sif, maybe even Gwen above Sanctuary Guardian. But this is just a subjective thing, right? Just for me, I feel like Sanctuary Guardian deserves to be this high on the list, right? So, kind of a short video, but there wasn't that much to rank, right? I would say that this is a pretty accurate tier list of my opinions on the game. Down here we have the two reskins just so horrible, right? Bed of Chaos, which is a joke and just proof that they could, with the reskins as well, it was proof that they ran out of time making the game. Moonlight Butterfly is just a slog, right? It's just such a boring fight. These two are forgettable, just not fun. Pinwheel's a goober, Gwendolyn's boring, Seath is a disappointment. The Bell Gargoyles are kind of cheap and just frustrating. Not that hard, to be fair, but still. Taurus Demon is an underrated fight, in my opinion. Iron Golem is just like a solid middle of the road. Nito is a good boss with a cool design, but maybe a little lackluster on the actual mechanics. Gaping Dragon is an incredibly memorable boss, but kind of a boring fight. Asylum Demon, very iconic first encounter with a boss in Souls. Capra Demon gets a lot of people mad, but I really enjoy him. I love his design. I love the brutal nature of the fight. Crossbreed Priscilla, obvious waifu material and sort of a reward for a horrible area. Quelaag is just a really good boss fight, right? Like, I think it's really fun to fight Quelaag. Gwen, final boss of the game, very climactic. I just think it loses out in certain regards to the rest of these, but Gwen is obviously fantastic. Four Kings, probably the best spectacle in the game, right? Just the way the depth perception is handled is just like so weird and kind of off-putting, but very cool. Sif, emotional roller coaster. I really hate seeing animals get hurt, right? I could watch, I could cut down knights and wizards all day, but when it's a cute dog, it's tough for me. ONS, people think I'm snubbing him by putting him this low, but he's still S tier, you guys, come on. And Manus, hardest boss in the game. Calamite, first real dragon fight in Souls. Sanctuary Guardian being this high is purely subjective. And finally, Artorias is truly one of the greatest bosses in video gaming history. and easily top 10 in all of Souls. So that's my tier list. Tune in next week. Might do Souls, might do Pokemon, but tune in. Stay safe, y'all. Catch you later.